if you've heard it, but Mr. Hasley, you haven't heard it, and it's a pretty cool story. But I saw Amber for years in my court, and she'd come in, I mean it, but I'm judge, I have to change, I got it, it's gonna happen. And she got a few chances, but she applied for drug court once. I think wasn't that we didn't agree to take. Because one thing we try to make sure is you're genuinely motivated. You're 3 times. Okay. She was persistent. She applied the 3rd time. Most of us shaking our heads, and we had a long discussion. And we said, you know, let's do it. You know, we'll find out soon enough if she's there. But, and now, 2 years, not one sanction, right?
No, 1 sanction.
Not one sanction. Like I said earlier, and just like Christ, if there'd been one of us that would have accepted that gift, he'd done what he did. And I always do this. You know, Amber, if it just been you, everything we've done, everything we will do.
Thank you, I
It's
appreciate
been,
that. Like you just said, my name's Amber. I'm not gonna go all the way back to my childhood and share all that stuff. I'm gonna start where I feel like is important for me. And it was right before I came into the program, so probably the last 3 years of my life. Like Judge Sloan said, he gave me chance after chance after chance. And one of my first times in court, one of the most important things that he said to me was about being honest. And he told me that several times I came up there before him, and I told him I was going to change. And then I would get out, and I would go right back into that. And he said that there wasn't a whole lot of people that was pulling for me. And so I wanted to prove them wrong at first. I went to jail. The first time I went to jail was in 2004, and it was for selling delivery. But my problem wasn't selling drugs, it was that I like to use drugs. So I got out and I got put on probation. And then I tried to figure out a way that I could continue to use, but maybe manipulate the system a little bit. So I would use for 3 weeks, and then the week before I went to probation, I would stop using. And that worked for a little while, but then whenever I couldn't stay clean, I stopped going altogether. So that led me to my first violation in 2006. And then again in 2008. And then my 3rd violation in 2010. And at this time, Judge Sloan was pretty much tired of seeing me. So he gave me another chance. And I did good for a little while, and then I blew it. I went back out, and I was wanted again. And during that time, I reached my breaking point. I hit my bottom. And I was working. I just went out on a 2-week drug binge, and it should have ended my life, but it didn't. And one day, I remember I went outside of the apartment building that I was living in, and I sat on that little concrete stoop, and it was sunny and the birds were chirping, the neighbors' kids were there, and it was breaking the silence with their laughter. They were so happy. And I realized that there had to be more to life than this, and I realized that I messed up again. And that was the first time that I realized that I wanted something different. And the only thing that I remember popping into my head that day was God. And I hadn't talked to God in a long time because I was ashamed. I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I didn't think that He wanted to hear me because I prayed so many foxhole prayers before. Like, God, I'm sick. If you just get me over this, and I'm not sick, I'll clean up, I'll straighten up. And I never did. But that day, He popped into my head, and I knew He was the only person that could help me. So I started talking to Him. And I said, God, there has to be more to life than this. I can't do this every single day. There has to be something better. And if there's not, I don't want to live anymore. I wanted Him to take my life. And that day, a peace came over me, and I felt like everything was going to be okay. But nothing happened right away. It was about 3 weeks later. I woke up, and I had an instant bad feeling come over me that something was going to happen. I was so scared I didn't want to leave my house that day. I was gonna call into work, and I remember it like it was yesterday, it was on a Monday. But I only had $90 in my pocket, and that was to pay for an ABC card to keep my job. So if I would have called in, then I was gonna be sick that day because I hadn't used anything and I had no money. So I had to make a choice, either to call in to work or to go to work and have money to get home. So I went to work. That day changed my life. It started my journey to recovery. I went to work that day and I started taking all the tables that I could to make all the money that I could. 5 o'clock rolls around, 6 o'clock rolls around, and we were on a wait. The entire restaurant was completely full. There was people at the front door, and there was a lady that came in, and she got sat in my section. And she looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. So I continued just to go, thinking, maybe she was a regular that came into the restaurant, and that's why she was familiar. That lady saved my life that day. I look out the window, and I see her outside talking to the cops. And then she comes back in, but I didn't see them anymore. So I asked the hostess, I said, the lady at my table was talking to the police, do you know anything about it? And she told me, she's like, I don't know, whatever it is, they're keeping hush-hush. So I go directly to the lady and I ask her. I said, is everything okay? I seen you talking to the cops. And she says, Amber, just go to the back and talk to your managers. But the lady didn't know my name because I never told anybody my name. So I start heading to the back and one of the managers stopped me and handed me some food to run. So I ran it to a table that was hid by the front door. And the cops walked right past me. And I was in full-blown out addiction at the time. I would have done anything. So my first reaction was to go all the way. So I'm leaving. So I walk right out the front door. And then I hear them coming, and I take off running. And I was beating them. And the next thing I know, I seen stars. I honestly thought that was it. I'd been shot. He hit me with a taser from about 100 feet away, it seemed like. And so I leave from there and I go to Jefferson County. And whenever I get there, there's a sense of relief that come over me. And I felt so good because I didn't have to look over my shoulder anymore. And so, like I said, as an addict, you try to do anything you can when you're in jail to get out. So I once again tried manipulating the system. I'd never got recovery. I'd never even tried recovery. I'd never wanted it up to this point. So my first thing was try to go to Teen Challenge. I'd been in there for about a month. On my arraignment day, I go before Judge Sloan, and I had asked to go to Teen Challenge, but I still wasn't there. My intentions that day, I've never told anybody, was to get out and go to Teen Challenge and leave. I still wasn't at that point to where I was ready. So I stand up there, and I'm telling Judge Sloan, well, I want to go to Teen Challenge, and my probation officer, Jeff, stood up that day. And he told the judge that I had a history of lying, and that I had a history of running. And he didn't think it was the right time for me. So I didn't get to go that day. And I was so mad when I went back to that cell that night. I wasn't mad. I was mad partly because I didn't get my way, but I was mad because Jeff was right. So I was angry at him for being right about the things that he said. And I thought about it that night. And all these things that everybody said was just kind of hitting me. So I decided to write Jeff a letter. And I told him that I had never tried recovery, but I wanted help. And I didn't care what he did. I apologized to him, and I left it up to him. So whatever he saw fit, just as long as I was getting some kind of help, I was willing to do it. So a few months passed by, and I hear from the drug court team that I'm going to get to be in the drug court program. So I was like, okay. And the drug court program, the cornerstone of it is honesty. They said I had to get honest. I'd never been honest before. I never told the truth. When I was in my addiction, if somebody asked me where I was at, I'd be at Walmart. I'd tell them McDonald's. That's how bad it was. So I told them that I thought I could be honest, and the first step by doing that was to start by telling the truth. So whenever I came into the program, if I didn't do anything but stay clean and tell the truth, that's what I did. I didn't know what I was doing. I was out of jail. I had never done anything else before. I'd never been clean. All these thoughts were still in my head. I was surrounded by fear. I was scared. I didn't think that I could do this program. If you would have asked me 2 years ago if I'd be standing here today, I would probably tell you I can't imagine graduating drug court because all I can do is stay clean for 24 hours at a time. But that was the first step for me. And that was like that for my first year. I didn't trust in people until I started going into those classrooms. And they told me that my way of thinking was wrong. And I knew where my way of thinking got me. It got me in jail every single time. So I knew I might want to try something different. So I started watching everybody. I started seeing what they were doing. I started going to meetings, and at first I thought meetings were a cult. I didn't want any part of it. And I started seeing what everybody else was doing, so I started doing that. So every single day I started just staying clean 24 hours at a time and doing the next right thing. And then after about a year of doing that, that felt normal to me. And one of the most important things that was said to me, Patty told everybody in class one day, she said, you would do anything for your drugs than to get high. So why not treat your recovery the same way? And so I did that. I didn't have a car, I didn't have driver's license, I didn't have car insurance. I barely had a roof over my head when I came out of jail this time. But I found a job and I walked to work in the snow. I walked to work in the rain. And I did that until I could get driver's license. I did that until I could get a car. And those were setting goals for myself, which felt good. It was achievements gradually. Because it doesn't get better all at once. You can't snap your fingers and just be okay. And I started talking to them, so I started trusting them. I trusted them before I trusted myself. Because I didn't trust myself. I had never done it, and I didn't think I could do it. But I talked to them until the trust came from myself. And then, 30 days went by, 60 days went by, 90 days, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. And then I started thinking, I can do this. There is a life for me outside of using drugs. But I had never imagined it before until I came into drug court. Drug court, they taught me things. They taught me about addict behavior. They taught me how I could do anything, I just had to want it. And I honestly believed that if I used again, I was going to die. I wouldn't come back. I only had one chance at this, and I full-heartedly believed that. And they pointed the finger toward the path that I needed to be taken, but they couldn't walk that path for me. I had to make a clear choice to do it for myself. And that's where I am today. Today it's a choice for me to stay clean. This life for me is a lot easier. Today I have a relationship with my family. My nephews come over to my house and they stay all night. They weren't even allowed to ride in the car with me before. I've not missed a birthday, a holiday, anything in 2 years today. I have the potential to do anything I put my mind to today. I have a driver's license, I have a car, I have an apartment. All those things I achieved on my own. Nobody handed them to me for once. And the most important thing is, growing up, I didn't really have a family. My dad, he lost custody of me right after my mom and my dad divorced, and it took him a couple years to get me back. And the only thing he knew how to do was to keep a roof over my head and food in my belly. He didn't know the first thing about being a parent. I didn't feel secure. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel loved. But I found a family in the drug court program. I know that no matter what happens to me in life, I have somebody that I can call on for once in my life, and that they will be there. And I trust them. And that's all I have.